Well, it is finally here, the paper 2 and paper 3 topics. And in this video, I will be going through those topics with you for CSEC HSB, Human and Social Biology, CSEC Biology, as well as CAPE Biology Unit 1 and Unit 2. So I would include some timestamps in this video so you can always skip to the subject that applies to you. Alright, so let's get started. So as you see, we have our topics. Let's see what CSEC HSB has for us. Right, so here are our topics for human and social biology. First thing to note, this column represents what's in paper 2. Let me scroll up a little bit, right? So this is the paper 2 column, and this is the paper 3 column. And as I'm sure we're all aware, there's no paper 3 for human and social biology because this subject does not include SPAs, which paper 3 is a stand-in for private candidates. So let's see, how many topics are we looking at here? We have 6 topics, right? Okay, we have living organisms and the environment, food chains. I'll explain what that means. Skeletal system, excretion linked to chronic lifestyle diseases. Again, I'll explain what that means. Reproductive system, heredity, and variation disease. And this one is basically 2 topics here. You have heredity and variation, and you have disease and its impact on humans. And number 6, impact of health practices on the environment linked to infectious diseases. So this, what do they mean by all of this? Okay, firstly, what I'll do is go through the syllabus. You see where the titles come in. They basically give you the sections in the syllabus. Now the first topic said living organisms and the environment, right? But it also included in brackets focus on food chains. Sorry, it said food chains. The interpretation for that is basically focus on food chains because section A is a very big section. It covers a wide range of topics. You're going from characteristics of living organisms to the cell, etc., right? Cell specialization, osmosis diffusion, photosynthesis, and then we come to food chains. So my interpretation of that sentence is to say that the focus will be on section A. The first topic is section A, but it's the part of section A that focuses on the food chain. So in this case, you're essentially focusing on objectives 10 right down to 13. Alright, so anything that has to do with food chains, that will be your focus. Now remember, that does not mean you're going to study that exclusively because you're still going to get tested on entire section A, section B, section C, etc. in paper 1. But those of you that want some guidance on how to study for paper 1, you can go to my video that explains the strategy for determining what to study. I also created a document that would take out all the objectives that apply to each of the topics, and I've summarized them into a nice little document. And as for paper 1, I've made it available for free. And as for paper 1, you just have to click on the link in the description below, and it will take you to a nice little Google Drive folder where you can download that document. Alright, now that's topic 1. Topic 2 is the skeletal system. So let's see what that is. Okay, so the next section in your syllabus is section B, life processes. Again, this is a very big section because this essentially covers everything in Grimner, right? Your characteristics of life, growth, reproduction, etc., etc. So where's skeletal system? Let's look for skeletal system. And there we are. Let's call it subsection 4. Because this refers to the entire subsection, you're looking at all the objectives in this subsection, right? Okay, everything from cartilage, tendons versus ligaments, to effective posture, poor footwear, the importance of locomotion, you name it. All the diagrams that you need to know, right? So all of this falls under skeletal system. The third one is excretion and homeostasis with a chronic lifestyle diseases link. So that one we have to do some exploration. So let's first go to the excretion and homeostasis subsection because that's what it refers to. And it's the one right after subsection 5, excretion and homeostasis. And as we can see here, we have all the objectives that we need to know. So where does this whole chronic lifestyle disease link fall in? Well, you notice for in this is what you call your explanatory notes, this column. You'd notice for this column, for some of the objectives, you have something called link to specific objective. Alright, the link we are looking for is this guy. Right? And you notice describe the regulation of blood sugar, the role of insulin and glucagon. And this, of course, would apply to diabetes, which is a chronic lifestyle disease. So this objective, D6, which would be in the disease part of the syllabus, is going to be really important in this area. So in other words, you can't expect that the question that you're going to have a question that's going to test you in excretion and homeostasis, but it's also going to ask you to show the link between, for example, this objective in particular and the chronic disease of diabetes. Because that's where the insulin, especially insulin, falls in. All of this you need to study, right? Regulation of blood sugar, regulation of water, regulation of temperature. You have to be able to tell between heat and temperature, all of these. So about 10 topics. So let's go to the next topic in the list for paper 2, and that's your reproductive system. So let's jump across to that. And that's subsection 7 in your syllabus. And we know for reproductive system, you have a wide range of topics to cover. Now, my suggestion is, I would say, anytime you see this link to, include it in your studies. And so that's your other link. Here we have our various subjects, objectives, right? And that's it for reproductive system. The next topic in the list for paper 2 is heredity and variation. So let's take a look at what that is in reference to. So heredity and variation makes reference to section C, the entire section. So we're looking at topics like mitosis, meiosis, right? Genetic variation, genetic versus environmental. We're looking at the different, basically genetics, monohybrid inheritance, DNA versus RNA, etc. Right? Inheritance of sex, as in gender, okay? Genetic engineering, right? So all of this would fall under that topic for paper 2. The next one, disease and its impact on humans. Let's take a look at that. Right, as for heredity and variation, this one refers to another entire section, word for word, disease and its impact on humans, section D in your syllabus. And this refers to all these objectives. So what's good health, what's disease, right? Remember our link to excretion and homeostasis. So you have to study it either way, right? Asthma, infectious disease, HIV/AIDS, STIs, all of this, vectors, hygiene, controlling the growth, right? All of this, immunity, drugs, etc. So all of this falls under disease and its impact on humans. Now, the last one, impact of health practices on the environment, infectious disease link. So let's take a look at that. Right, impact of health practices on the environment, word for word. Now, they said infectious diseases link. So my suggestion is that you're going to make reference to objectives that are connected to infectious disease. So that would include anything that's connected to the propagation of pathogens, which are the cause of infectious disease, or the prevention of the propagation of pathogens. What do I mean by pathogens? Bacteria, viruses, all the various agents that cause infectious disease. So in that case, I would start around here, right? Because boiling, all of that has to do with getting rid of pathogens, removing infectious agents. Pollution wouldn't really do that. Pollution more has to do with the impact on occupational health, environmental health, right? So that most likely would not be included. But again, still study it for paper 1. But in terms of your focus, your laser focus, in terms of preparing for paper 2, this is what you're going to focus on. Objective 6, 7, 8, because all of this has to do with controlling infectious agents. That's one of the impacts. Water supplies, contaminated water, sewage disposal, all of that has an impact on infectious disease in a community, right? Pit latrine, very important. Landfill, not so much. Domestic refuse, not so much. So you can stop at about objective 16, because the rest of it has to do with more environmental health, etc. So that is section E, the last topic in your list of topics for the exam. And that's it basically. So let's go on to CSEC Bio. Alright, so we have here our topics for biology, and unlike HSB, you do have a paper 3, and as you can see, the topics for paper 3 are a lot shorter, but of course remember, paper 3 focuses on the practical skills, SBA related skills for private candidates. So that's why you find the list a little shorter. And what I would explain for these topics, you would have a greater focus on, again, SPA related skills, right? So let's see what we have here. Let's go to paper 2 first. So we have here 10 topics, right? Nutrition, biotic and abiotic factors, food chains, predator-prey, decomposers, treatment and control of diseases, transport, excretion, reproduction, continuity, and variation. Well, now looking at these topics, the thought may cross your mind of, well, better they told me what's not coming because it looks like the entire syllabus. Let's see what this looks like in the syllabus and make sure we understand what these topics refer to, okay? Now, in the CSEC Biology list of topics, they placed nutrition first, which, unlike the HSB list of topics, takes us directly to Section B. But just like the HSB syllabus, Section B refers to the life processes, the characteristics of life, everything in Grimna, right? Growth, reproduction, etc. Unlike HSB syllabus, it also includes reference to disease. So if Section B in HSB was big, Section B in CSEC Biology is large, right? So let's take a look at what these topics are. Many of the topics included fall under Section B. And the first one that was given to us was nutrition. So let's jump to nutrition. Before I do that, let me give you a little hint. Here we have the general objectives, right? So it's right after Section B, and then we go to general objectives. Now, the general objectives literally spells out the subsections of your Section B. So as you can see here, Part 1, General Objective 1, covers the cell and cell specialization. Part 2, nutrition, right? So we know now that this is literally an outline of the entire section using these numbers. Now, the first topic for paper 2 in the list is nutrition. So let's jump to, as we saw in the general objectives, that's number 2. So we're going to look for specific objectives that start with number 2. There we go. 2, nutrition. So anything 2.1, 2.3, 2.5, whatever, that would be in reference to nutrition. See? Nutrition. Now, let's see what kind of range we're looking at. We have to be able to distinguish between different types of nutrition, photosynthesis, of course, and you see our explanatory notes. This is very important for paper 2. Paper 3, suggested practical activities. This is some great guidance for when you're studying paper 3 in terms of the kinds of experiments, procedures, etc. you should be learning as a private candidate. Make sure you understand those experiments if those objectives show up in the list. So when we look at paper 3, I'll go through that with you. But yeah, nutrition, anything with 2, 2.4, 2 point whatever, that would be in your list of things to study, right? There we go. Enzymes, enzyme properties, all of that. Balanced diet. It's a big subsection. You have 11 objectives, yeah? From 2.1 to 2.11. And as for HSB, I pulled all of this out for you and placed it in a pretty little document that you can get in the link below. Right, so that's basically your nutrition. Let's go to the next topic. Now, before I say that, let's go back to our list of topics, right? Now you see these guys here. All of this. It's all fall under section A in your syllabus. Right, so let's see what topics 2 to 5, where do they fall? Well, the second topic in our list is biotic and abiotic. What does that refer to? Well, you have to, in this case, you have to go by objectives now. So we're going down, 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 down. See? So here's your first reference to abiotic and biotic. So this objective is important in terms of defining abiotic and biotic, right? Even the explanatory notes kind of spells it out for you here, right? But that's not it, because what may happen to some people is they were like, oh, okay, so I just have to define it and that's it. No, yeah, it's a lot more to it than that. So let's scroll down, right? Notice abiotics. So you have to learn this objective too. Discuss the impact. So you're looking at the abiotic factors in detail, right? Soil, water, climate to be specific. All right. This would also fall under food chain. So we will come back to that because that is listed elsewhere. But there's another aspect to the biotic that's not obvious. So let me find it. Right, you see this guy here? This would fall under biotic as well. Huh? So if in order to be really, really safe, you would also study this objective. 3.7. Because biotic relates to relationships between organisms, the different kinds of relationships. And even though the food chains topic and predator prey and decomposers, they refer to the other types of relationships that occur. But symbiosis is another type of relationship that occurs between living organisms that was not covered in the other three topics. So that also would fall under biotic. The next one is food chains. And that one is straightforward. So you're starting from here, right? You have to construct food chains 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. Sorry, not 3.4, 3.3. So we stop at 3.3. Should you do 3.5? I would say still do 3.5 because a food web is essentially a combination of various food chains. And then there's the whole idea of trophic levels, which is an important concept that does exist in food chains, but it just becomes a lot more obvious when you're looking at a food web. But it's still a concept that will apply to food chains, so I would say still study 3.5 as well. Right, and that's your food chains topic. And then we have predator prey, that will be your objective 3.4. If for 3.4, you'll be focusing on, this is the level of detail you want. You see this part here? This is something people might miss. Alright, so pay attention to that. The next one, decomposers. Again, for decomposers, that's objective 3.6. This is important, right? We show you different types of, see this here? This is something to explore as well. Alright. Also this here, all of this, enzyme, nutrient cycling, focus on that as well. So you're looking at your, I would say in particular, your nitrogen cycle. Because remember, you have several types, several species of bacteria that are included in the nitrogen cycle, and their decomposition action is a very integral part of that cycle. So make sure to understand the nitrogen cycle, make sure to understand the bacteria that are involved at the different stages, especially the ones involved in ammonification and nitrification. So let's jump to topic number 6, which is treatment and control of diseases. Right, so here we are, disease. Okay, don't worry about 9.11. Remember, we are looking at the subsections by the number. So the general objective 10 would refer to disease. So we are counting from 10.1, 10.2, etc. Everything under subsection 10 would fall under treatment and control of disease. So that's what we're studying, yeah? Life cycle, vector, right? Because again, and environmental economic implications. Now, it's a relatively short number of objectives. However, because anytime you see a short number of objectives, spend some time exploring. For example, 10.5. It looks simple. Discuss the treatment and control of the 4 main groups. Now, there are 4 main groups of diseases, which is a broad range of diseases. For example, you have pathogenic, you have infectious disease, which is an entire category by itself. Deficiency, so that's connecting to your nutrition, right? Hereditary, physiological. So that's a lot of information you have to process. And now you're going to look at the treatment and control, right? So you're looking at things like diet and exercise. For physiological, you're making reference to hypertension, diabetes. You have to know about insulin and glucagon, and reference to these specific objectives. B 2.11, 4.5, 9.6. So that's shorthand for, even though you're studying 10.1 to 10.6, you are also studying section objectives 2.11, 4.5, and 9.6 because they are in reference to these objectives. They are connected, okay? And this is, again, very important. Be able to do this, all right? So you're going to be looking for questions that's going to ask you to do this, right? So your data presentation skills, that's going to come in handy. Drawing a table, drawing a graph, etc. Because that's what they mean by display, yeah? You have to be able to draw a graph or draw a pie chart, etc. as well as interpret. Alright. Again, reference to. Yeah, so you're studying this objective as well. Alright. So that's your disease topic, treatment and control of disease. So now the next topic provided by CXC is transport. And for that one, we're going back up. We're still in section B. We haven't left section B yet. Alright, so let's jump to transport. So you're looking at your circulatory system, your cardiovascular system, the need for it, etc. This is subsection 4 in your syllabus, subsection 4 in section B. And this one, so everything with 4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, all of that falls under. And you see, this objective again, it looks simple, but look at the amount of topics you need to know. Look at the things you need to be able to do. Alright? So, this one in particular, you can't really do that in an exam. So, you're not really going to have to do that. But this here, you have to be able to do that. You have to know all of this. Right? That's a straightforward objective. What else? We have, right, your red blood cells. We have here defending the body against disease. Now, ideally, you would have touched on this already in studying treatment and control of disease, because that's one of the objectives that was referred to in that subsection we just talked about. But again, you're going to be coming across this again, so you will be studying that again. What you'll find in the document that I put together, these two objectives would not be in the transport section. It would be in the treatment and control section, because you already have to cover it, so why say it again, right? But it's there. You would have to know about, so you're looking at transport not just in humans, but you're also looking at transport in plants. So you're looking at the xylem, transpiration, conservation of water, phloem, a lot of stuff to cover, yeah? So all of this, even food storage. So anything with objective 4 point whatever, that would be your transport objectives to study, okay? So that's it for transport. Now let's go to excretion, which is right after, right? So we have number 5, subsection 5. So anything with 5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.4, all of that would be excretion. And as you can see, it seems to be a short topic. It's about what? 4 objectives, 5.1 to 5.4. But take note of 5.4, how much detail you need to know, right? This is a lot of detail. This is essentially the dominant topic of this entire section, right? You need to know about this, right? You need to be able to do annotated, gross kidney structure, the nephron. This is important, right? So even if they say highlight, remember the practical skills, you still need to be able to do annotated diagrams, function of the parts, kidney failure, mention kidney failure and dialysis, right? So that may have referenced it, and ADH, very important. Now let's look at the next topic, second to last topic, reproduction. Let's see what reproduction has for us. Alright, so reproduction is subsection 9. So again, as I keep saying, anything with 9.1, 9.2, 9.5, you name it, that would be required study. Again, anytime you see this, refer to, yeah, that means you should check back and make sure you have that covered as well. What else? Compare. And as usual, reproductive systems, you need to know these systems, their parts, their functions. Menstrual cycle is always a very important topic to review, right? What else? This is the one where you often would get the graph showing the hormonal changes that controls the menstrual cycle. Make sure to know that inside out, right? Of course, bringing gametes together, fusion, development of the embryo, birth control, types of birth control, and we also have the disease aspect, transmission. Of course, this will also be referenced in the disease section in the document I put together that was included in the disease section. Right, you're also looking at plant reproduction, right? Different types of flowers, most like so, right? Seed formation, etc. Right, and fruit and seed dispersal. So all of that, you're both looking at plant and human reproduction, right? So that's it for reproduction, and the last topic is continuity and variation. So let's take a look at that. So unlike the other topics given, this last topic refers to the entire section. So the general objectives becomes very important in terms of how you're going to guide your study, right? Because there are some entire general objectives that is almost like a specific objective. For example, subsection 6, general objective 6, I should say. That one is literally the detail here. You might as well study it, right? You're going to get maybe one specific objective falling under this one, and just to guide your study, right? Again, here, your general objective is relatively detailed, but you're not going to get a lot of detail in the specific objective. So let the general objective guide your study here. Alright, for the others it's relatively straightforward. Alright, so let's go through and see how this is arranged. For this section, the specific objectives are arranged a bit differently. I would not say, okay, follow the numbers. Just treat it as an entire section. And as I said before, it actually makes more sense to be guided by the general objective. And that's basically it. That's your last topic for CSEC Biology. Right, so now we're going to look at the objectives for paper 3. Now this is important because paper 3 is a little different in terms of how you would study fit. What would you focus on? Right, so we have here 4 topics. So let's see what those 4 topics look like in the syllabus. Section B, subsection 2, which is nutrition, right? And it's a specific objective in that subsection. This guy. Perform tests to distinguish among food substances. So all of this, you see, for paper 3, this column, which is called suggested practical activities, this column becomes very important to private candidates that are getting ready for paper 3, because these are suggested practical activities that would have been done in a lab or done for SPAs. Yeah, so this is what you would be studying. So you have to know about the various food tests. So that's the first topic. The next topic is ecological study and appropriate sampling methods. So let's jump to that. That's section A. And that's this guy here. Objective 2.1. And as I said before, the practical, suggested practical is going to be very important for paper 3 candidates. The next topic is the I, which is going to be interesting. So let's take a look at that. That will also be a section B topic. There we go. Objective 7.9 and 7.10. Now, remember it's paper 3, so what kind of focus are we looking at here? Well, you're definitely going to have to be able to draw the cross section or longitudinal section of the eye, right? So you have to be able to draw the eye, label the eye, recognize parts of the eye. Of course, you can't really do this in an exam, so that's not going to apply really. Okay, know these topics here. What else? This is what's going to be really important, because you're going to have to explain how these disorders are treated. So, for example, you may be called upon to draw a section of the eye. You may be called upon to show how the different types of lenses corrects long-sightedness versus nearsightedness. The next topic is disease. So let's take a look at that. So as for paper 2, you are looking at the objectives 10.1, anything with 10, 10.1, 10.2, etc. See, for example, 10.2, Why? Because of this. So you may be called upon to draw the life cycle of the mosquito or label a drawing. They may give you a drawing of the life cycle or an incomplete drawing and you have to complete it, or you have to name the stages, things like that. You may be called upon to analyze some data with respect to disease. Alright? You may be called upon, let's see what else might show up. What to focus on. Again, your whole practical skills. The practical skills here would have to do with graphs, drawing and interpreting graphs. So those are the kinds of questions that may pop up for you. And that's basically it for paper 3 of CSEC Biology. And now we're going to CAPE. Yay, CAPE. Alright, so here we have our Biology CAPE paper 2 and paper 3. And this is unit 1 CAPE. So let's just take a look at those topics in the syllabus. So we have aspects of biochemistry, word for word, from the list of topics. So essentially, any and everything in part 1, in subsection 1, any objective that has 1 point whatever, you have to study that for the exam. So 1.2, 1.3, etc. So basically everything to do with your biomolecules, right? Your food test as well, everything. Proteins, everything, okay? Part 2, which is cell structure and function. That's the second topic, word for word. So anything with objective 2 point whatever, you're studying that. So you're looking at your animal and plant cells, your light versus electron microscope, prokaryotic cells, roots, etc. Now, even though they didn't say membrane structure and function, my suggestion is to still study objective 3.1. Alright, because it is part of the cell and you just don't want to get sidetracked, right? You don't want to study, say, okay, I'm good, I'm covered, and then boom, the cell membrane shows up. And that's it for module 1. So let's go to module 2. So we have our structures and roles of nucleic acids, word for word. So you're going to focus on this set of objectives. Any objective here that's 1 point whatever, you're studying that. 1.1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.5. 5 objectives, right? And as I said before, especially when you have a small number of objectives, the detail that the question is going to test is going to be heavy. So pay close attention to those explanatory notes. Part 1. Part 2, cell division and variation. So anything objective 2.1, 2.2, all of these guys will be, you see this here? Very important. Okay? Very, very important. So basically mitosis, meiosis, variation, mutations. So wow, yeah, we all sickle cell. Why is it important? Very, very important. Okay? So that's it, up to 2.11. You don't have to study this. Look at that. Dihybrid ratio, monohybrid. Oh my God, they left it out completely. Woo! So, I know some students out there celebrating. Right? But remember, it will still come up in multiple choice, huh? So don't jump up too much. But in terms of your focus, yes, paper 2, you're stopping at this point. 2.11, And that's it for module 2. Now let's look at module 3. But before I go to module 3, there's one thing that we didn't touch on, which is genetic engineering. So let's see where that shows up. So we haven't completely avoided. We are at topic 4, right? So we avoided this part, but this, you see this, if they have this as an entire topic, spend some time really studying this area, because as I said before, it's only 4 objectives, but the details in each objective is a lot. Right, so you don't have to study that for paper 2. And that's it for module 2. And now let's go to module 3. I'm not even going to roll through this. Just go to module 3 and everything in module 3, study it. And now let's look at paper 3 now. Now that's the interesting part. So we're back to aspects of biochemistry, which is the first topic for paper 3. So let's jump to that. Anything in objective 1, 1.1, 1.2, study it. But I'll highlight some areas to focus on in terms of the practical. So things like this, ring structure, being able to draw the ring structures, very important, right? Anything to do with being able to draw the structures, important. Okay, of course, definitely your food tests are going to be really important. All right. See this test, make sure to understand that procedure in and out. Okay, especially when you're doing quantitative. A quantitative investigation is very different from qualitative. Qualitative is basically, is the food chemical present or not? Quantitative is how much of it is present. And that particular procedure has a lot of various techniques involved in it that is very tempting to test. So it's very possible that you're going to get a question in that area. What else could really pop up? Yeah, and that's it for aspects of biochemistry. Right, so you have your module 2 topic in paper 3 will be your patterns of inheritance. So if you're a private candidate and you got away from it in paper 2, it's back in paper 3. Right, so anything to do with objective 3.1, everything about this is very applicable to practical skills. So study everything. Make sure you understand the chi-squared test in particular very well, because that's your statistical skills. So make sure you understand that very well. And of course, using your genetic diagrams to analyze. So you'll find questions will be testing things like this, yeah? The module 3 focuses on reproduction in plants. So let's jump to that. Right, so we have here reproduction in plants, everything. But again, your emphases will be things like this. For paper 3, yeah? So being able to draw the anther, being able to draw the embryo sac. All the objectives that look for drawings, focus on those objectives. So you're looking at these first 3. Really important. Oh, this one here, you see this? This is something that begs for a question. Alright? Very, very applicable to paper 3. Alright, so that's CAPE 1. So let's jump now to CAPE 2. Right, and here we have Biology Unit 2. We have paper 2. We have 6 topics. Cellular respiration, ATP, energy flow, transport, nervous coordination, immunology, substance abuse. And for paper 3, we have 4 topics. Just like paper 2, cellular respiration, but we have kidney, excretion, health and disease, substance abuse as well. Alright, so let's take a look at what that looks like in the syllabus. Alright, so we have Unit 2 and the first module, Module 1, Bioenergetics and Conservation. And based on the topics provided by CXC, we are focusing on General Objective 2 and General Objective 3. Yeah? So let's jump to those topics and get an idea of what that looks like. So interestingly, we will not be touching photosynthesis this year in paper 2 or paper 3. So we're passing photosynthesis by photosynthesis, and we go straight to cellular respiration and ATP synthesis. That's the first topic. It's subsection 2. So any specific objective, 2 point whatever, we are studying. Yeah? So 2.1, 2.2, etc. How many objectives do we have here? A good bit, about 6. But notice, even though the specific objectives seem short, look at the level of detail. So yeah, treat those explanatory notes very carefully. Alright? I am definitely going to create a document for this one, because this needs some explanation, right? So I will be, and what I'll do in the document, or what I'm doing in the document is, for the explanatory notes, I will list them out and try to break it down as much as I can, right? So that you can literally tick off, okay, I did this, I did this, I did this. Alright? The next one, next topic, energy flow and nutrient cycling. That's this guy here, subsection 3, energy flow and nutrient cycling. So we're looking at things like your food chain, food webs, yeah, biological pyramids, how energy flow is represented, as well as your cycles, your nitrogen cycle, and comparing the nutrient cycles versus energy flow, distinguishing the two, right? And notice with nitrogen cycle, role of microorganisms, very important. So you're looking at your various species of bacteria that are involved in that process. Make sure to know the species, the Cape level. This is CSEC. So know the difference between Nitrosomonas versus Nitrobacter, right? And that's it for module 1. And now we're going to look at module 2. Subsection 2, transport in the phloem, is beautifully short, but again, as I said before, it can be deceptively short, because the level of detail they're going to ask, you're going to have to know things like the mass pressure flow hypothesis, understand the experimental evidence, make sure you know that, right? So you have to really go into detail because it's a short section, yeah? And your diagrams, etc., and being able to distinguish sieve tubes, companion cells, that's also important, right? So that's transport in the phloem, and the other one is nervous coordination. So let's jump to that one. Right, nervous coordination, subsection 6. You're looking at 6.1, your types of neurons, role of nerve cell membranes, conduction, synaptic transmission, synapses. So again, another short topic, another short subsection, I should say. So you know what that means. Level of detail of understanding. The level of detail you need to understand, you need to study is high. Right, immunology. So immune response, types of immune responses, your memory cells. Yeah, it's a relatively large section. We have about 10 objectives. Yeah, that's it for immunology. And substance abuse, that's subsection 4. So let's go to that. 5 objectives. This is an area that is, yeah, really important. Make sure, again, you have a short objective, but a lot of information, a lot of detail. And that's it for paper 2. So let's see what paper 3 looks like. Paper 3, we're back to cellular respiration. So let's jump back to that. Right, so we're back to cellular respiration and ATP synthesis for paper 3. Remember, paper 3 tends to test practical skills. So yes, study the entire thing, but pay close attention to things like this. Right? Pay close attention to that. What else? Anything with diagrams, pay close attention to that. Make sure you also understand the apparatus and materials that are used. Right? You may be asked to draw an apparatus setup. So make sure you understand that. So kidney excretion and osmotic regulation. And by now, because I've been saying it a million times, these are your areas of emphasis. Diagrams, you've annotated diagrams. Make sure that you're comfortable with making annotated diagrams. What's annotated diagrams? That's where you label a diagram. You do a labeled diagram, but for every label, you add a short phrase describing some aspect of the structure that you're labeling, right? Whether it's function or some detail about its structure. This here will be important. So those would be your areas of focus studying kidney for paper 3, yeah? Right. The other topic in paper 3, health and disease. So let's jump to that. That's module 3. See this objective? Yeah, this is the objective that's going to feature prominently in a paper 3 question, right? Make sure you understand these terms: incidence, mortality rates, be able to interpret and analyze data, very important. Substance abuse. Let's see what would be applicable there. Right, so substance abuse, everything 4.1 and on. See this objective and this objective. For example, they may bring in incidence of certain cancers related to smoking, and then you have to now make the connection between the two. That's a question that could come up, right? So in terms of preparing for paper 3, your focus would be on these two objectives, 4.4 and 4.5, right? And that's it for paper 3, and that's it for all of the biology subjects that you would have to prepare for the exam. Look forward to, I will be producing some explanatory videos as well as past paper review videos covering a lot of these topics in the coming weeks. Alright, so look out for that and get studying. As I said before, check the link below. I would have documents for each topic, CSEC HSB, Biology, Cape 1, Cape 2, that would summarize, compile all of these objectives and the explanatory notes in one document so that you have a guide, a little checklist, so that you can check yourself and make sure you have everything covered, right? And that's it, okay? Till then,